Thank you, Karen, for your invaluable contribution. So let's take a look at the pedagogical concepts, especially the one that we're focusing on today. These are short phrases, all of them under the umbrella of teaching off your students, not at them. Not a one-directional monologue, but rather engaging with them to figure out how you can best bring them to the material, bring them to the tasks and activities that you'd like them to do through your careful interaction and mediation of how they participate in class. There are 10 with the umbrella concept of teach off your students, not at them. Today we're going to look at engineering participation. Now, please don't be put off by the word engineer. We chose it because it seems to focus on the idea that teaching can be structured in solid and reliable ways, just as we hope engineers build solid and reliable structures. It is not anything to do with the science of engineering, math, or any kind of formulas. The sub-rubrics of engineering are 4. Don't assume that your students know how to participate. Be explicit in how you want them to participate. Arrange the classroom to the extent that you can in ways that invite participation, and continue to monitor participation throughout the lesson. So one of the ways you can do this is to engineer your own participation. As the teacher, you obviously carry a lot of authority in the classroom, and what you want to do is make sure that you are not doing most of the talking. So before you start a lesson, take a look at the page and think to yourself, where is this material? Where does it fit into what we've been doing? Is it new? Is it review? What looks interesting? What looks dull? Don't forget that what is dull looking to you might be really interesting and challenging to lower level students. But your most important engineering challenge is to try to solve this problem. How can I, the teacher, avoid doing most of the talking as we work through the page? How can I help the students to talk and interact more? So here are some choices that you have. Let's take a look at a typical lower level textbook page. And the first choice that you have could be that you just lead the exercise. That's the traditional way to do it. It's entirely respectable to do it. On the other hand, you might be able to mix it up a little bit, perhaps go backwards, perhaps have the students volunteer instead of you calling on them. Have the speakers themselves, each student, choose the next speaker. In other words, pass a little bit of the agency over to the students, and, just as importantly, take away the authority of the textbook. The textbook is full of great language practice, but the textbook is not the language. The language is in you and your students, and you always want to help break that feeling that they often bring to the classroom that somehow the textbook has to be respected in its exact form and never change anything. A great way to do this is to ask them to close their books at the end of the task and see if they can recall anything from the exercise. It's a great way to consolidate their knowledge and also to kind of nudge them to remember that English is what is in them and not in the book. So for the receipt on that page that we looked at, the students could quiz each other, they could practice pronouncing the prices, they could do a little recall, how much did the razors cost, how much was the total, etc. Another choice, pair work. Just have your students work together. You're there, they can always consult with you, but they can answer the questions, they can write down the answers, they can double check the answers with another group. It's always a great idea to break things down and give each student a small amount of responsibility for the material on the page. If you look at the last bullet point here, this can work even with higher level students if you have a longer reading passage. It's called jigsaw reading. We break the text down and we give each student or each pair, group, responsibility for just one segment of the text. Then we bring the groups back together, remix them up, and have them share what they learned, what they read, what they talked about, and together reconstruct the main ideas from the text. Let's take a look at 2 ways of doing that. With a lower level class, this is the drugstore shopping receipt page. They could go over these questions, they could answer them, they could either check the answers as they're doing it, they could do it with one book closed, one student has the book closed, one student has the book open. And with a more advanced class, you could have a reading and each segment of the reading. There's 5 very nicely laid out with headings. Each pair could have responsibility for reading 1 paragraph, and then you could remix the groups and they could talk through the whole text by putting together what they've learned. So that's jigsaw reading, group discussion, pair work or group work. A third way to do it, and this sounds similar, but it's not quite the same, is to have them talk through the exercise without answering the questions, without just writing down the answer, but rather talk through everything. What's the pronunciation of that word? What does this question mean? How can I re-ask this question in a different way? Is there another possible answer to this question? Are there any words in this text that I don't understand that I'd like to talk more about? Do you happen to know, you, my partner, happen to know anything about these words? This is what the sociocultural theory might call something like languaging, metacognitive musing, meditation on the language as language, instead of focusing on the task just as a task to be completed. These are not very deep questions, but they could lead to conversation. How much is the soap? Well, what soap do you buy? What's the name of it? Do you know how much it costs? Do you go to a different shop to buy cheaper soap? Can we remember what kind of soap was listed on the receipt, etc. And the fourth choice is just have each student work alone. There's absolutely nothing wrong with giving students a few minutes in the class, have them work on the exercise by themselves. They can consult with their classmates or consult with you, but it's a great way to have them have a little bit of quiet time to work on something which you then can quickly check the answers to. So those 4 choices are ways of engineering participation through modifying how you lead or how you organize the tasks. And what did it look like? Well, you directly told the students what you expected, how you want them to interact. You explained the format, and you either put them in pairs, or you gave instructions about don't talk to your neighbor, do it solo, talk to me if you have a question. You were very clear. Although you might not have been able to actually move chairs to separate groups, you could set up speaking groups by giving them partners through nomination or through choice. And you can always notice. The nice thing about having a small class and a small classroom is you can easily notice how things are going. Okay, it's your turn now in your breakout room. Take a look at 1 or 2 of the exercises that are on the PowerPoint that's linked in the chat that Erica has linked for you, and see if there's some teacher talk time, TTT, choices that you could make, how you would modify your teacher talk time based on the exercises that you've chosen. And if another arrangement or another idea occurs to you, talk about it. Let the book and these ideas inspire you.
Okay, so this is the time when, if we were live, we would do a breakout room. But since we don't have that, I'm just gonna kind of talk through it a little bit with you. So this is where you want to have your handout or your sample textbook pages that you printed out, hopefully, or you can look on another part of your screen. So for each of the 3 breakout rooms, I've included 2 sample textbook pages. One is from a beginner level textbook, and so you have to imagine very low level students. And the other is from an advanced level textbook. So you have to imagine students who can really do a lot with the English language. They're not necessarily in that order. So I decided for the video, I'm going to pick one of the pages. Since you don't have the benefit of hearing from your fellow volunteers, I'm going to share one of my ideas about what I would do with that page. And then it's up to you then to think about other ways. There are many, 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 many other ways you could work with any of these pages. So you can write about those in your study guide. And also, as I said, if you can come to the Let's Talk Teaching meetings, we're going to talk about this together. And then you know, as a group, we can generate a whole lot of ideas. But let's start with breakout room number 1. What are some TTT choices you could make? And I have listed the ones that she mentioned. I'm going to talk about the first page, which is the little dialogues. So this is from a beginner level textbook. And it's a good idea to start with a page start, with the easiest kind of task and then work up to the more challenging tasks. In other words, you start by giving them a whole lot of support, make sure everybody can be successful. And then you slowly remove some of the support to make it more challenging and see how much they can use the language independently. So with these, you see these little conversations and it says use the words in the parentheses. So it's a basic grammar task really about conjugating the verb. So, hello, hi Marco, are you busy? I am playing the guitar. Can I call you later? No problem. Bye, goodbye. And all the conversations are very similar to that. So low-level students, I would start with just reading through conversation 1 with one student. I would choose a student who I think could handle it and say, okay, I'm A, you're B, let's read the conversation. Okay, so they would get a model of what that little dialogue is like. Then I would move it straight away, instead of having them just fill in the answers, which is super easy, or maybe even if you think it's difficult for them, have them fill in the answers. So they write, I'm going to the library, I'm playing video games, I'm going to the movies. They have that little bit of solo work, but then straight away, to make this a more fun and more valuable exercise, put them into pairs. So they work with, assign, okay, you two are together, you two are together, you two are together. And you can add a jigsaw element too. Like say, okay, you two work on conversation 2, you're assigned conversation 3, you're assigned conversation 4. So they each only focus on one. It's a way to save time if you have a lot of other things to do that time. And then you have them practice reading the dialogue. So person reads role A, person reads role B, and then they get to feel the language in their body. They have to use their brain to connect from what's on the page to their brain to their mouth. It's a huge leap from just being able to fill out the little blank on the sheet, right? So you get them saying, just verbalizing that conversation several times. They need a lot of repetition, a lot of review and practice. So I would have them read the dialogue, maybe 3 or 4 times, reverse roles, and read it 3 or 4 times again, and then tell them, okay, next, I'm going to ask you to put the textbook away, practice doing it without looking at the book. So they have to become more independent, right? And have the language more in their brain, not only in the textbook. And then ask each group, say, in a few minutes, I'm going to have each pair present the dialogue to their classmates without looking at the book. Okay, so then they have to practice knowing that, okay, they're going to have to perform this dialogue without looking. So they have to take that extra step of actually sort of memorizing and getting those phrases and the conjugating the verb, those expressions all in their head. I think they could do it. If you give them enough time to repeat and practice, I think they would be successful and they would leave that class that day really knowing how to do this little dialogue. So that's my idea. If you want to, you could also explore the next page with a more advanced lesson. Okay, let's go back to the video.